Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 18th meeting of the City of Minnetonka's Sustainability Commission. This is our 18th in-person meeting and 5th this year. The Commission generally meets every other month on the third Tuesday of the month. The schedule and tentative agenda can be obtained by contacting the City's Planning Division or by visiting the City's website at minnetonkamn.gov. Residents can provide input on tonight's agenda during public comment via email or provide input tonight during this meeting. The Sustainability Commission's first meeting, believe it or not, was on May 2021. Since then, we've accomplished a significant number of useful and practical actions for our residents. Areas of review for the Commission include air, water, energy, land, and ecological resources, recycling, waste management, and other related sustainability areas not addressed by City Code or another City Advisory Group. The Sustainability Commission has a unique role here in Minnetonka, as we serve both as an advisor to the City Council and as an ambassador for the city programs. As an advisor for the City Council, the Sustainability Commission makes recommendations on city plans, policies, procedures, programs, practices, and proposals that relate to sustainability and conservation of our natural resources. Final decisions are then made by the City Council. As an ambassador, the Sustainability Commission attends events to promote city initiatives with the public. We will now move to agenda item number 2, which is a roll call. Ms. Sutherland, would you please call roll?
I'll actually take this, Mr. Golub.
Thank you, Susan.
Commissioner Carr is absent. Henry is absent. Ingham.
I'm here.
Meyer.
Here.
Ingram.
Here.
Norman.
Here.
Patain.
Here.
White.
Here.
And Chair Golub.
Here. Thank you, there are 7 of us tonight. Next is approval of this agenda for November 18th, 2022, which is agenda item number 3. Ms. Sutherland, do you have any comments or any changes to make?
I do not.
Okay, very good. Since there are no changes, is there a motion to approve the agenda from one of my commissioners?
Motion to approve. Quick question, housekeeping. Are our buttons not working for the microphones?
Mine's stuck on.
If you,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know if we ever just want to confirm. Now mine's off.
yeah, you have to push it.
Well, it seems to have a mind of its own.
Yes, that's true.
Right.
Mine's stuck on
Ours
as well.
Yeah, I'm going to leave mine on, and hopefully it won't cause any
quiet.
problem. So going back, was there a motion to approve? Actually, okay, is there a second?
I second.
Very good. Ally, would you please poll the commissioners? Oh, Susan, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Ingham. Yes. Ingram.
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Norman.
Yes.
Patain.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Chair Golub.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Next is approval, excuse me, of our July 22nd, 2025 and September 16th, 2025 minutes. Does anyone have any changes to those minutes? Looking? No changes? Very good. Therefore, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from July 22nd and September 16th. Is there a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Susan, would you poll the members, please?
Ingham.
Yes.
Ingram.
Abstain.
Meyer.
Approved.
Norman.
Yes.
Patain.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Chair Golub.
Yes. The motion passes. Thank you. Next, we have our agenda items.
Chair,
Oh.
we have actually a second round of minutes that
Oh.
we're approving.
Didn't we just approve both of them?
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
thought we approved the July
Got it.
22nd and September 16th
Okay, that's
as
fine.
one motion.
Yep, that's fine. Sorry.
Okay, I was thinking we should do it
Yeah.
separately, but I thought, well, we can combine them.
It's okay.
Okay, no changes. Very good, thank you. Well, now we'll go to agenda item number 5. Before we start, I'd like to quickly review the steps for each one. I will ask each of my fellow commissioners to ask questions to staff. And at the end, I will ask if there are any more questions. I don't want to eliminate anyone from asking a clarifying question. If no one has registered to comment, at that point, I will open and close the public input portion for the agenda topic. If an agenda topic is informational, then no vote is required and we will move along. If there isn't a vote required, I will indicate that and then we will vote and then we will move along. So with those guidance, I'll turn over the item 5A to Ally. Thank you.
Sorry. Oh, there we go. So someone else is controlling these. Good evening, commissioners. This first item is the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan Review and Update. So this is an informational only item. It's meant just to be kind of a listening session from myself. I'm going to provide updates to our newer commissioners on the plan. So the commissioners that weren't here during the development of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, I thought this would be helpful. I also thought, an update for everyone would be helpful. It might have been a little bit of time since we talked about some of that background information. We'll get into implementation updates, and then this is also meant to help inform the conversation about the next item, item 5B, the 2026 work plan agenda discussion, just to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page. We remember what we're talking about here. But I'm going to try to keep my slides to about 25 minutes, so I apologize. It's a little bit of information, but there's kind of a lot to cover, and I want to make sure we take time to do that before we get into next year. I am going to stop 2 times during the presentation to see if there's any questions, and then at the end we can go through questions as well. So bear with me. All right, so for the overview of this presentation, we're going to talk about background, just kind of how we got to the point of the CAP. So I'm going to be referring to it as the CAP, which is the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan acronym, how we got to the point of that approval. Then some recent climate action accomplishments that the city has done. We'll talk about the community-wide CAP baseline data that's included in the plan, so what our greenhouse gas emissions were at as of that baseline year. Then look at the CAP goals that were included in the approved document, and then ultimately looking at some implementation updates, like where we're at now. So, if you're not familiar, the City of Minnetonka has a strategic plan process, and I wanted to start out with that because it kind of gives a bigger picture, like as to where the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan fits into all of our city programming. So the City Council every 3 years creates this strategic plan document, and they go through and they determine the strategic priorities that are going to help guide what we do at the city. So this is city staff, commissions, and the council. It helps guide their work. And fortunately, sustainability, resilience, and natural environment is one of the 6 strategic priorities. So that's where the climate action that we're working on really falls into that. So again, this is for both commissions, staff, and then the council. Not only does the city council value this work, but we see routinely on residential and business surveys that our community values environmental stewardship, which is really great to see. And then also, this is not just a recent strategic priority, it's actually something that you can see Minnetonka has cared about for decades. And it's really cool when you think about the makeup of the council has changed over that time, but it has continued to be something that the city has cared about. So this is not a comprehensive list. But I had actually given this presentation to the park board last month, or a similar presentation, just to kind of give them an idea of like, what does sustainability mean for the city and what does the strategic priority mean, and to kind of give a snapshot in time to say, look at, over all the decades, we've done a lot of different things and have continued to be a leader in this space. And it was a very intentional decision to do that. And even going back to the 1970s, I've been told that the city actually implemented wetland protections prior than the state of Minnesota. So it just kind of goes to show that, throughout time, the city has cared about this. I also wanted to show this because you can see within here, there are a variety of different climate actions the city has taken prior to the approval of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. So just because we have this plan now doesn't mean we haven't done anything prior to that. And then in terms of recent stewardship examples related to climate action, of course, we adopted this plan in 2024. We have since, I think before that plan was adopted, we started installing these public electric vehicle charging stations. We have 6 of those. 3 of those are fast charging. We have 5 electric vehicles within the fleet. We have, as of this year, we've started installing solar panels on 3 city facilities. So those are either installed or under development now. And then as of February of this year, we've enrolled over 2,700 residents in organics curbside recycling, and curbside organics. And that's just as of this year. And then I also wanted to highlight the work of the Sustainability Commission, and I pulled out some numbers. So as of just this year alone, you collectively have attended 10 community events. You've spent over 98 hours being a sustainability ambassador collectively as a group. You've engaged directly with 1,250 residents, and then also over 9,000 indirect contact. So that's when we're at events, making not that indirect contact, but you're making an impact by having these demonstrations of sustainability being a norm in our community and something that people are able to learn about and just see at our community events, such as like the EV vehicles that we've had. So thank you for your work and dedication. It makes a very big impact. And we still have a couple more events yet this year. So who's involved? Thinking about it more broadly from that strategic priority level, we have a lot of people involved in this type of work. So City Council, ultimately they're the policy decision makers. Then we have commissions who are yourselves, where you're the advisory boards. We also have the park board as well, who helps to advise on these topics when it's specific to park related topics. We also have partnerships with other local governments. So the state of Minnesota, fortunately, is very supportive of climate work, so there's grant opportunities there, and they also just help with information resources. They do a lot of resource information gathering, and they share that with other local governments. The Hennepin County has their own climate department that's very helpful and supportive, and then we also have our watersheds too, and they do a lot of partnerships with our staff. Every city department is involved in this work in some sort of capacity, and I've shared just a few different staff that are involved in this type of work in one way or the other. And then I just wanted to kind of reiterate that collaboration is really the key to success. And because climate action and sustainability are so multidisciplinary, it's crucial to have that interdepartment collaboration. So just so you know, it's not just me over here doing this work. It's really fundamentally every department is involved, and that's something that I've been very happy to see embraced at Minnetonka. And I will say it's not like that everywhere. So we're very fortunate to have that level of cooperation. So getting into so this is the baseline data, that was included in the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. So again, the development of the plan began in 2023, and that's where we had the community engagement piece, and the Sustainability Commission was involved, staff was involved, that sort of thing. And then in 2024, the commission recommended approval to the City Council, and the City Council ultimately approved this document as you see it now. The intention of the plan was not that it's a City of Minnetonka municipality plan. It was meant to be created by the city with city community member participation in hopes to help guide and inform the entire community about how they can participate and take climate action as well. And so it's really supposed to be a collective community-wide plan. It's meant to break down an extremely highly complex topic into distilling it into actionable ways that residents and businesses can take action either today, tomorrow, or in the future. And that was very intentional, the way this plan was aligned and created. So we'll talk about some examples there. But the plan breaks down 2 different ways to participate. It's either through the mitigation, which is slowing greenhouse gas emission reduction, the growth of greenhouse gas emissions, and then transitioning away from fossil fuels. The other is adaptation. So how are we adapting to a changing climate? And I will say that's actually pretty unique, especially at the time this was approved. I think more plans are starting to incorporate this adaptation piece, but because the council and the community has such support for natural resources, that's why you see that really shine in this plan. And I actually want to say that we're a leader in this space, because I just saw St. Paul is recently calling their plan an adaptation plan now too. So pretty cool stuff. The plan also includes a summary of climate hazards, and it talks about what we're already starting to experience in Minnetonka and then we'll continue to experience. So hotter summers we're already experiencing, and again we'll continue to experience, which leads to, or can lead to, poor air quality and unsafe temperatures to be outdoors. Warmer winters, which can lead to rainier and icier conditions and just more of those like freeze-thaw cycles. So you can think about our roadways and sidewalks and how those would be impacted. Heavier precipitation, which can lead to flash flooding. Increased hail damage, which we just all in Minnetonka experienced not too long ago with those that hail event storm. And then the prolonged droughts, lower water levels, and these, we can think about these having adverse effects on both health and safety of residents and workers, and then also it can be even on ecosystems, our outdoor recreational activities in Minnetonka, and then our built infrastructure. So there's a lot of various impacts and things that are being impacted through climate change. So the community profile, a summary of the city was also provided in the CAP. And so in 2024, our population, we had 56,162 residents in the city, and we had 25,240 households. The CAP talks about Minnetonka on average having a lower poverty rate than the average of the state of Minnesota, which actually, fortunately, leads to having a lower than average climate vulnerability within our community. And that's because when people have more resources, they're more easily able to adapt to climate change. So if you have less resources, you just don't have that ability, time, or money to do so. So we're fortunate in that capacity. The lower poverty rates also lead to a lower than average energy burden, and an energy burden is the proportion of your income that's going to energy bills. So our average here is that on average, 1% of our residents' income is going to an energy bill. However, the plan did actually call out that at least 900 households have a severely high energy burden, which means 10% of their income is going to their energy bill. So I think it's, while we can say we have low poverty rates, that doesn't mean that everyone's not experiencing that. And I think that's also important for us to think about when we're moving into implementation, because we can consider ways that we can help alleviate that energy burden for this particular population. This population tends to, not always, but tends to live in older or less efficient homes that could really be in need of those energy efficiency improvements, and that we can consider ways of helping to provide the equal access to home energy efficiency improvements and then also clean energy opportunities. So is there a way that we can help kind of fill that gap, if you will? And then switching to the right-hand side of this slide, we have a generalized land use map, and this wasn't actually included in the plan, but I just wanted to kind of call out, since we don't talk about land use much at the Sustainability Commission level, if you think about how the land is used in Minnetonka, so around 57% of the land use is used for residential purposes. 50 of that is, I'm assuming, for more like single family, looking at our city planner over here. Single family, like duplex, if you will, and then the multifamily is going to be like your apartments and condominiums, that sort of thing. And then for commercial and industrial, and I call these out together because on the next slide they're kind of combined, that's about 7% collectively. So when we look at our greenhouse gas community-wide emissions inventory that was completed and is 2021 is the most recent date that we have that data for. That was done for the whole community. So this is kind of like the impact of that land use. So we think of like the emissions impact of what that land use graph is for our city. And so generally, there's been a trend downward since 2007 for our community-wide emissions. So there's, as of 2021, that the greenhouse gases have decreased 32%. And then in 2021, 54% of our greenhouse gas emissions were from building energy. And again, looking back, thinking about the impact of the land use, the emissions within the building energy sector actually are relatively split between residential and commercial, even though there's a greater proportion of residential land use. And then you can also see that the energy that created those greenhouse gas emissions within the building energy is actually split between natural gas fuels, so fossil fuels, and then the other half is electricity. And then looking at the other portion of this graph, so 44% of our emissions were from vehicle travel in 2021, and then the remaining 2% is from waste sources. And then looking more at the actual sources themselves, so breaking electricity out, you can see there has been a downward trend of the emissions. So since 2007, emissions within the electrical sector have continued to decrease, and that was due to energy efficiency technologies becoming more commonplace. It's also due to Xcel Energy creating a greener grid, so more renewables, more carbon-free sources, creating the electricity. And that has actually put more of an emphasis on the natural gas fuels or fossil fuels. So you'll probably hear more focus on CenterPoint now and how they're trying to implement more energy efficiency measures with residents and businesses. The emissions actually haven't really significantly decreased. They've mostly stayed the same, and I've been told the variation is just due to hotter or colder years because this really follows our heating and cooling usage. And then for travel, generally staying the same. There's a slight decrease, and definitely towards the end, but I believe that that was more due to COVID-19 impacts. And some of that is maybe due to cleaner vehicles, but really the rebound effect is still, we're kind of waiting to see like what happens after COVID-19 and how that changes. And then waste has generally stayed the same. And then, so that was the community-wide emissions. Now looking at a smaller subset of just our city municipality greenhouse gas conditions or emissions. So in 2022, 1% of the community's greenhouse gas emissions were from the city or operations. So just 1% of our entire community's greenhouse gas emissions are from city operations. So I think that emphasizes the importance of community participation in this work, especially when we think about these goals and what does that mean to achieve them. How do we move the needle? Of course, we have to focus on our own facilities, but we also very clearly need participation from the community. If you look at figure 13, this breaks down where the emissions fell into. So about 51% of our city operations emissions were from city facilities. A quarter were from water and sewer distribution. About a quarter were from our fleet vehicles, and then 4% were from street lights and signals. And then the figure 15 graph is a little confusing. Sorry, I thought I was gonna go back. Let's see, previous. But I included it in here. It doesn't include the travel emissions, but I included that in here to say recreational facilities. You can see that is a pretty large component of our facilities emissions, and it's about 50% of this piece over here. So if you want to think of like our buildings, 50% of that is from like Williston and the ice arena. So I think I'm going to stop there for questions. So before I move on to the CAP goals and implementation, does anyone have any questions so far on what I've covered? And Chair, I'll let you call on folks as they have questions. I'm seeing a couple hands.
Michael?
So you mentioned adaptation and how St. Paul is like claimed that their plan is now an adaptation plan. What does that like actually mean to adapt to climate change rather than trying to stop it?
Yeah, great question. So mitigation means that we're going to try to reduce how much greenhouse gas emissions we are emitting. So if I'm a business, I want to emit less, I want to utilize electricity to use cleaner electricity, that sort of thing. Adaptation is where I'm adapting to a changing climate. So yeah, is that kind of makes sense?
Oh my. I wanted to ask if like what physical like adaptation examples are there?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. So like I know like right now we're the Natural Resource Division is like looking at putting in different types of plants that are adapted to this new climate that's coming in. We're also thinking about ways of I'm trying to think of other examples that the city is currently doing.
Commissioner White, I think of things in our engineering department where they're looking at new modeling for new rainfall amounts and where do we set floodplain elevations based on those new rainfall amounts. So adapting some of our regulations also. So not just adapting what we are doing physically in the community, but how we're regulating those things also.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Ellen.
Allie, could you go back to the last slide, please?
Yep. Let's see. Previous.
I just have a clarification question. How is on the left water and sewer 26%, but then on the right it's the biggest one?
Let me see. Oh, it's because I don't really know why. So these were pulled out of the cap, and the consultant made these. And for some reason, they left travel out of the figure 15. So it doesn't include the fleet, and it also breaks out the city facilities. So that's why you're not seeing like the largest.
I understand.
I
Okay.
think they were trying to just break it out to say like, what are these smaller subsets of this figure 13 graph?
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff at the moment? One point I just want to add, Michael, before the plan was written, a little bit of history. Most of these documents prior to ours were called CAPs, Climate Action Plans. And as they were being developed, folks said, hey, we need to think about adapting to a changing climate. And so the acronym CAP stayed CAP, but it became Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. And we discussed that with staff and our consultants, and several of us were extremely interested in changing the CAP from a Climate Action Plan to a Climate Action Adaptation Plan. It just seemed to make a lot of sense going forward. And so we did, so they did. And that's why ours is a Climate Action Adaptation Plan, looking to try to mitigate issues going forward.
And Chair, just one other thing. So I think there's also a distinction between thinking about adapting our natural environment and then our infrastructure. So there's two different components of that, and they both need to be focused on. And the CAP does list out like different examples of that, but you can think about, our natural spaces and how do we make sure that they, withstand the climate changes that we expect, but also like our buildings, our streets, even like extreme storm events. Like now we're expecting to see more hail damage. Like what does that mean? So those are some other examples.
Good point, thank you. Any other questions for staff at this point? None?
Okay, awesome, great. So we'll move on. So this is the goals that are included in the CAP. So this is a mouthful, I will be honest, but I'll break it down. So one of the goals, the main goal really, is that the CAP aims to reduce community-wide greenhouse gas emissions by 63% per person and per business by 2030 from the 2018 baseline levels. So few different things this means. So because we had the greenhouse gas inventory from 2021, the consultants called this pathway out to say from 2021 through 2030, we can meet this 2030 target by reducing our emissions per person by 6 metric tons, either as a person or a business. And if everyone does that, we will achieve this 2030 goal. You might wonder what a metric ton means or what that is. And while it is actually a measurement of mass, they try to help with visualizing it as a volume. So this is like what the volume of 1 ton of carbon metric tons would look like. And I also found out that on average, an American actually emits 16 tons carbon dioxide per year. So if you can think about what that means and what that means to reduce 6 of those. Another example that I was able to find is that, and we didn't make this chart, but I think we should make our own version of it at some point, but if you think about one action that you can take and thinking about like, okay, how much is that actually, like how much carbon is that actually reducing? In this example, if you transition a fossil fuel vehicle to an electric vehicle, you can actually reduce your carbon emissions by 2 metric tons per year. So that could essentially be your reduction in the 6 metric tons. So I'd like to do more calculations of this. I think it's helpful to put those numbers. I know maybe not everyone is interested in those, but it helps to know what we're doing because it's not a tangible thing. You can't see this impact. So if we can kind of show people like, here's your chart and choose your own adventure, I'd like to move towards that direction. So the other goal that the CAP has is that we hope to be net zero by 2050. So the goal there is that no greenhouse gas emissions would be emitted by 2050, or if they are, that we balance that by carbon removal, so like carbon sequestration. And that would require that everyone, whether you're a resident or business, reduce your emissions by 5 metric tons past that 2030 goal that we would have already met. And we also do have the resilience adaptation visions in this plan, and going back to Michael's question, so what does that mean? It means that the vision that was set is that we preserve our natural resources, thinking about our natural environment. We strengthen community connections, so we become closer to each other, and then we also prepare our infrastructure to withstand any climatic changes. And the CAP also included a scenario, so an emission reduction scenario to say, can we achieve this 2030 goal? And if we can, what would that world look like? This scenario doesn't necessarily mean we have to meet each of these. It's more just like this would paint a picture of how we could get there if we were focused on this. Or there's other ways to do it, but it's just one example of a way. So the world would be all new buildings are all electric and as energy efficient as possible. 1/4 of our existing buildings would have completed an energy efficient retrofit and switched to electricity for space heating and water heating. 80% of our community's electricity is from carbon-free sources, which Xcel Energy is actually already committed to meeting, and they're on track to meet this. 1/3 of our vehicle trips have been eliminated. 1/5 of our cars are on the road are EVs. We've all cut our waste by 1 pound, and then 75% of all waste generated is either recycled or composted. So going back to making this document at the time, everyone that was involved wanted it to be a very usable document for the public. So these checklists were added. So if someone picked this up, they could look through the checklist, choose what they wanted to focus their time on. It helps them understand the impact, either related to adaptation or mitigation. And they can, have a game plan. And I would say this is a really great starting point. I think that we will, as a group, create more flyers, but this is a really cool starting point and was a unique part of our plan. So this is for homes and businesses. And then we also had a municipality checklist. And this we'll be talking about when we talk about the implementation section of this presentation. There are 50 strategies here. And they fall into different categories, and I think it's helpful if I read them out, so I will read those categories. So there's strategies within city processes, so updating our city processes, looking at building emissions, fleet emissions, natural resources, resilience, multi-jurisdictional collaboration, education, outreach, and engagement within the community, providing incentives to the community to participate in climate action work, and then updating our policies and programs. So we will talk more about this in the implementation section, but I'm going to stop there again. Does anyone have any questions that came up during that piece?
I have one, Ally. Our plan was worked on in 2023. It was adopted in 2024. The last year that the consultants had in terms of our greenhouse gas data was 2021.
Yeah.
And the curve is going downward. Do we, and I don't mean to put you on the spot because I don't know myself, but do we have any inkling what will happen, what has happened to that curve since 2021? Has it rebounded slightly because more people have been more active with COVID? I don't want to say going away because it's not,
Right.
but it's not quite on the forefront of everyone's thinking. So I was just wondering, has that curve or the straight line continued to go down, or is it rebound a little bit? Do we know at this point?
Yeah.
'Cause I don't know.
Yep, great question. I think that's a logical thought to think that, yes, I think in certain sectors there's going to be, the emissions coming back to, like, the office or whatever, with travel, of course, those are going to rebound. However, I mean, some of those emissions were just displaced, but at a residential property, perhaps. You're still using electricity there. But time will tell. I mean, we're just going to have to get those emission inventories, and that's a goal or a strategy within the CAP. So I expect us to start looking at talking to consultants and kind of moving forward with receiving quotes to do that study again. I believe they very intentionally chose 2021 to make sure it wasn't in the midst of COVID at the time. And it was probably the most recent data that they had access to because the data lags. I think you can only get it, a year or two in advance or, in the past, that sort of thing. So stay tuned on updates there. But
Thank you.
any other questions?
Apparently not at this point.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so for implementation, so the plan as approved included these 50 municipal strategies, and I wanted to define what a strategy is. So a strategy is, we can think of it as a long-term plan to achieve a major goal, and our goal being the goals that I had just reviewed on the other side. So they provide, another way to think about strategies is that they provide an overarching direction and vision. For example, they provide us policy direction. I think that's the easiest way to think of it. Some examples of these strategies are, for example, strategy 7 is to ensure energy efficient operations at city facilities. Strategy 31 is to partner with watershed districts. Strategy 40 is to implement a green cost share program. So when I arrived here and I looked at this document, my thought was that, okay, we have the policy direction, which is great, but now we have to figure out how to do this. How do we make these strategies come to life? And that's been my task over the last handful of months. So what I am hoping to do, and I've started to do, is to create this like roadmap for implementation. And of course I want the commission's feedback and other staff's feedback, but I think as a city, that's what we need to do next. And to create that roadmap for implementation, we need to develop tasks for each of these strategies to figure out what are we going to do next. And just to compare, so a task in comparison to the strategy, a task is a specific short-term action that's taken in order to execute the plan, or in this case, the strategy. I think of it as, another way to think of it is a day-to-day action that's actually going to move us towards implementing that policy direction. So, as an example, if we look at strategy 40, which is to implement a green cost share program, which I expect that our commission will be pretty heavily involved with at some point. In order to make that strategy really come to life, there's a lot of things we need to ask ourselves before we get to that point. We need to know who is going to work on this. What does a green cost share program mean to the city of Minnetonka? Because it could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. When are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? What's the cost or budget impact of that strategy? What is the ease of the implementation? Some of these are a lot easier to implement than others. And background status. Some of these, as I was going through it, it was very clear we're actually already doing a lot of these things. Some are brand new, and that, again, impacts the ease of implementation. So I've combed through all 50 strategies, and I've started to ask these questions for each. And I've done that because that's the only way we can get to the outcome that we need, which is a prioritized implementation timeline. So I'm going to walk through the steps that I've taken to get to this point. So again, my main goal has been to take the very large list of strategies and break them down into actionable tasks for us. So I've reviewed all of the 50 strategies, and I've organized them into a working spreadsheet. This looks chaotic, I know, but I've broken down the strategies into actionable tasks. And it's certainly, I didn't put every single task that we need to do, but I tried to call out, like, what are the main steps we need to do in order to achieve this strategy? And in some cases, most of them, it was like maybe 3 steps. Other ones, it was a long list. But I got to, at this point, there's about maybe 150 tasks that the spreadsheet has. And I was actually able to narrow it down to 45 strategies, unofficially. And I did so by consolidating like strategies. And we've kind of talked about that at the commission level with our work plan. One example of that is that our city facilities, there was a lot of actions related to the city facilities, and I felt that it wasn't the right approach to think of them independently. They were also related, like ensure energy efficient operations at city facilities, and then another one talks about electrifying our city facilities. So really all of them should be considered simultaneously. So I've consolidated them all into one strategy, for example. And in other cases, I actually added additional strategies, again, unofficially, but I felt that they were needed for reporting as one example, kind of like Brian just asked about the greenhouse gas emissions, and sharing our progress with the commission and internally and the public. And then also needing to do this exercise that I'm doing in terms of creating a work plan. So our near-term work plan and then our long-term work plan, and just, considering these as strategies because they're a big part of what we need to do. And so that's how I got down to that 45 number right now. Then I started going through and assigning different attributes to each of the strategies, and I kind of went through that list before, but I started thinking about like who's the lead of this, what are some phasing requirements, because in some cases like one strategy really needs to happen before the other strategy can happen. Is this new or existing work, that sort of thing. And then all of that information led me to start creating and drafting a staff work plan, which I've now started organizing in a quarterly Gantt chart. We've talked about that too as a commission. I don't know if it'll always stay in that format, but for right now, that's what made sense. And I'll show it to you a little glimpse of that in our next slide. But then from that chart, I was able to come up with a drafted commission work plan that you reviewed and made comment on last week. And the commission is going to be working on that in our next item tonight. So just want to know this is all kind of what I've been working on, and I hope we can all collectively continue to work on this, and internally we're going to work on this too. So I'm not going to go through the Gantt chart one by one because that's going to be slated for the January commission meeting, but just wanted to call out some highlights. So this quarter, my focus is, of course, creating these like short-term, near-term, long-term work plans, or just making suggestions, and then meeting internally and kind of revitalizing the climate action internal team that we had during the development process, and start working with those folks and getting them on board and assigning them essentially some of these actions. Quarter one of next year, I have it slated to be focused on evaluating. There's about like 20 different strategies that are strategies we actually already do, and they just need to be kind of like reviewed to determine if updates are needed in order to comply with whatever the CAP is asking of us. In some cases, I honestly don't think that we might need to make changes, and in some cases, I think we do. So that's kind of an information gathering for me, and I honestly see it as more of like our low-hanging fruit. Like, let's start there and see where we're at. So that kind of actually falls into Q1 and Q3, and then the other 2 quarters I have slated to continue that research. So a lot of these will bleed in kind of like to the next quarter, but then starting some research on the really heavy lifting ones. So thinking about like our city facilities and what does it mean to be, you know, I forget one of the goals, like completely carbon neutral, like, you know, just these really big goals, like what does that mean and where are we at? Reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, you know, decarbonizing our fleet, just some of these really big questions, and trying to figure out like where are we at and where do we need to go and what does that mean for our city budgets, like long term. So I want to start thinking about these early so that we can start slating them for, you know, future years maybe, for our budgeting purposes. So again, more to come on all of these, but I just wanted to give you kind of a glimpse into what I've started. So lastly, just ending on what I'm going to be continuing to do is meeting with the staff team. I'll give the biannual updates to the commission. So with that Gantt chart specifically, so January will be the first time, and then we'll circle back in July. And then between those times, I'm anticipating having the general staff updates, you know, providing some internal updates, what we're working on. And then of course the commission will have a related discussion item based on your work plan too. So stay tuned. I think there's a lot of work here. I'm super excited, so I hope you guys are all too. And if you have any questions about the commission work plan, let's table those till the next item. But otherwise, I will answer any questions you have. So thanks.
Thank you, Ellie. Any questions from my fellow commissioners to Ellie for that excellent summary? Dave?
Yeah, it's an impressive amount of work. And can you go back to the last slide, or the one that had all the stuff on it? There's quite a few here that I don't know if I would call them like safety related. You know, first responder gear and training, welfare visits and calls, stuff like that. That doesn't really relate to our greenhouse gas or that sort of stuff, but it's part of sustainability in terms of safety, or?
Yeah, great question. So it's related to the adaptation piece and thinking about it from, you know, are we going to have more severe, frequent, you know, extreme storms, I guess, is where that's coming from. Yeah, and that's a perfect example. It's like we do a lot of these things, but how should we think about potentially updating it in the context of climate change?
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Ellie. Any other questions? No, I don't think so. It is very impressive. Thank you, Ellie.
Great. Well, thank you all. Appreciate it.
If there are no other questions, that will, item 5A is informational. We don't need to take any other action, except we will then move to item 5B.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so item 5B is a discussion on the 2020. Yeah.
Excuse me, following my own notes, we had no further questions, so I will, since no one's registered to comment, I'm going to open and close the public input portion for item 5A, and we will move on to item 5B. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Next. All right, so item 5B is a discussion on the 2026 Sustainability Commission work plan. This is a continuation of the item on the September 16th agenda meeting. So, oh, that makes sense. I was like, wait, what is happening? Oh, here we go. Sorry. Okay, this is a discussion item, so Brian alerted me that there was a misprint in the packet. So it is a discussion item. We're looking for a vote tonight. Discussion, comment, and then recommendation for City Council approval of the 2026 Commission Work Plan. An overview, so we'll do a really quick overview of the work plan goals, like what the work plan purpose is, the commission duties just in general based on our city code, work plan organization. So it looks a little different this year, and we'll kind of cover why and what it looks like now. We'll talk about the feedback that you provided on September 16th, and then we will review the revised draft. So the goals of the work plan is that it guides next year's work, essentially, for the commission. It's meant to determine our annual goals, priorities, and objectives for the commission, and it's also meant to provide the city council an outline. I've talked about it with Brian. Of course, there's some flexibility, but it just gives us some level of guidance of what we're planning on doing. It is based on the commission's duties and responsibilities as well. The city code defines these, and it's much more verbose than this, but I've kind of distilled it into four what I call like duties, the four main duties, and really it's just to be a sustainability advisor, which you all know very well, to the city council. Same thing with the sustainability ambassadors to the public, cultivating community partnerships, and then of course just reporting on our progress and our work. So the work plan is organized this year based on the duties. So if there's an action, it falls under one of the four summary duties. We also have included the SMART goals, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, or time-bound goals. Either the target is written that way or the goal is. And then I've also included if it relates to something, and each action has at least one thing it relates to. So just thinking about like how this action is going to align with a staff work plan, staff capacity, city plans, and then also the strategic priorities that we mentioned before. So I'm just going to quickly summarize the feedback that you provided either through the Menti or just through other comments at the last meeting. So one of the questions was, what has been your favorite activity as a commissioner? And unanimously, the commission responded that ambassador opportunities, particularly at events, have been your favorite. So this was really helpful for me. I mean, as a new staff member, I'm still just kind of learning about what you like and don't like, and I want to make sure your work plan reflects what you all like to do. So thanks for sharing all of these answers. The favorite activity that was proposed in the draft work plan was either the CAP planning, program planning, the award ceremony, the commission liked that, and then again just the events and the Everything Electric exhibit, and then the reuse swaps were called out as favorite events proposed or activities proposed. You also suggested additional actions that we can consider. So multiple swaps, the commission stated. And sorry, I forgot to mention that if something's listed on here, it had a majority support too. So it wasn't just like one person was interested. This was kind of like majority support from the commission. So multiple swaps were of interest. Exploring this idea of the Neighborhood Champions program, considering financial incentives for participation in our CAP goals and strategies, progress tracking documents like we just talked about in the last action or the last agenda item, and then there was a unanimous interest in subcommittees. So this was like a planning, event planning committee, so that was really good to see. New forms of resident engagement, so everything, or Electrify Everything, MN collaboration, so that's a third-party group that provides like outreach around electrification at home. Include geothermal in promotional materials, so starting to talk maybe about solar or geothermal along with solar and other renewable actions that people can take. Find new events to join, so not only joining like city events, but if there's a non-city sponsored event, like how can we be a part of that? Recording interviews of award winners. So we've talked about, just more of these like videos or actual like podcasts or something of that sort. And even like a topic expert coming in and having a recorded audio of that. New forms of businesses or the community-based organization engagement. Some that were listed were the business splits with CEE, repeating that as previous years, continuing with the Minnetonka Business Council partnership, so that's our chamber, developing a strong list, or developing a strong existing connections list. So that would be like, who are we already partnering with, and just kind of starting there. And then also I liked this idea too of asking others to connect us to their existing network. So kind of like trying to build our own network based on, you know, maybe someone that's won an award, or Sustainable Minnetonka, where we ask, like, do you know of another business that's already doing this? And maybe they do within their business community. So that's exciting. And then lastly, I just heard that there's, you know, more ways that you would prefer to learn. So in-person tours, webinars, presentations, and articles. So again, thanks for providing all that feedback. So the way that we'll plan to use the feedback is that I have included some of that in the commission, the work plan, the revised work plan. I think some of that also is a level of detail that just can be noted for future discussions on implementation in 2026. So one example is the work plan included like explore one program that the commission would like to implement related to the CAP. Instead of putting it specifically in there, we can just kind of table some of these conversations to a broader discussion at a future meeting. And then I've also noted at least one action was converted to like more of a staff work plan than the other, than keeping it on the commission work plan. Okay, so I will go through this. I'm not sure, I think I'll probably just summarize each at a high level just so we remember, because it's been a little bit of time since we went through this. So for the first action, we talked about reviewing the biannual CAP implementation updates from staff and making comments and suggestions, and so those updates would be in January and June. That action was not updated. Review, research, evaluate, develop, and advise CAP-related plans, policies, and programs. And that's where that develop one new CAP-related initiative pops up. And I kind of like the idea of keeping it open and just allows us to have broader discussion on that. But of course, that's up to the commission. Item 3 was to review the Minnetonka or Sustainable Minnetonka Awards and recommend special recognition and nominee awards, and that you'd recommend 4 residents and 4 businesses for a special recognition award, and that was unchanged. Item 4 was slightly altered to include trainings, workshops, and then also the webinars related to CAP priorities for the commission just to continue learning. So that was that slight update there. Item 5 was unchanged, and that's just to coordinate and attend educational on-site tours related to the CAP priorities. So we want to attend at least 2 next year. Item 6 was related to the educational tables, so I won't list all of these, but the priorities fell into the CAP priorities, so either a home emission reduction table, travel emission reductions, waste emission reductions, and the climate resilient ready home. So I put the ideas there because I think we could probably expand a bit on some of our tables next year from what we've done, and just kind of gives us a list to go off of. And the target, again, was unchanged, talk to at least 300 residents at those tables. So this is where it maybe gets a little confusing, but I'll try to explain. So some of these I combined based on some feedback. So the old item 7 and old item 8 were both related to the Everything Electric exhibit. One just talked about hosting, and the other one was creating a subcommittee. I just combined those into one with 2 different targets just to make things a little bit simpler. So that's hosting the Everything Electric exhibit at the Summerfest again and the city's open house. The old item 8 was related to outreach at multi-household residential units, and the feedback was that it just felt like more of a staff task based on kind of the conversation we have, and I agree. I think that would probably be more of like the mailer outreach, so we struck that, and that will be something that I work on. The new item 8 was unchanged, and that's just hosting an event to educate residents about the renewable energy options. Item 9, I consolidated the old items 9 and 10, which is related to the Earth Day reuse swap. I consolidated that into a new item 9, and that I put hosting 2 reuse swaps based on the feedback, and I left the Earth Day reuse swap because I like this idea of it being around Earth Day, and I think the commission was really in support of that. So I wanted to call that out. But I also left it open where the commission could, consider what you wanted to do for your second event. And then the second target was to create that event planning committee. So I expect it'd be like myself, and then at least 2 commissioners would join something like that. And item 10 was updated to specify the business splits instead of leaving it a bit more general. And since then I did talk to CEE, and they had some suggestions that instead of going to a lot of places on one day, it's better for them, and it's just more recommended to go to kind of create these like smaller business blitzes that are targeted geographically in like one area, like one strip mall area or one retail space. We focus on that. We do that once of the year, and then we do like another version of that later in the year. And I put in here at least 2 of those, but depending on how they go and the commission's availability and willingness, we could certainly do more. But I thought 2 was maybe a good place to start. Item 11 is to interview businesses and residents about their sustainability efforts, so that stayed the same. The old 12 and 13, I believe those were combined again and made into just this one, create new community connections, and that was based on feedback from the commission. And growing the Sustainable Minnetonka Award program, that stayed the same. 14, this was something that I kind of just started thinking about myself, is that I think it's helpful in January if we created kind of like an implementation schedule assigning each of these items to a commission meeting. It just kind of keeps us on track. It's almost like an agenda calendar, if you will. It's not to say that it's defined and required, but it just kind of helps us slate the whole year as like what are we going to talk about when. I've done that with the previous commission I worked with, and I thought it was helpful. So I added that in as a suggestion, and then the item 15 stayed the same. That's just reporting our updates to City Council. So I think that was the last piece that I had. So with that, I will open it up for your discussion, questions, and comments. So Brian, if you want to lead that.
Thank you very much, Ally. Excellent summary of a lot of information. Does anyone have any specific questions to ask Ally of her presentation? I don't see any questions. It was.
No question. Yes, thank you, Ally. Very thorough, and I agree with the agenda items for the upcoming. 2 things. One, looking at our goal of decreasing greenhouse gases, we see that the city's tasks are a small portion compared to the community and business. And we've got an excellent chart of actionable items that residents, and then a separate one that businesses can do. But I think in order for that education to occur, I think it needs to be highlighted through our media sources, pulling out each of those single pages, as well as updating the resources and tying them to the action items. So for example, the weatherization for one's home could have a clickable link for home energy audit, and then even to make it a QR code at our events so that people could, with their phone, be able to tap right into that action list. It's an excellent resource, but I think we need to highlight it for residents to be able to readily take action.
I'm going to try to turn my, there we go. Thank you, Commissioners, Chair. Yes, and I'm realizing I probably didn't explain it fully properly. So the municipality checklist with those 50 strategies,
Yes.
It's not only for municipal operations. So some of those includes that engagement and outreach, and that is one of the strategies. So exactly what you just said, like updating our city website, updating flyers and educational materials, that falls into at least 2 or 3 different of those strategies. So yes, that's definitely going to be a big focus and something that I really hope and I see the commission being of help with those. So yes, great points. I appreciate that. And I think that'll be exciting to make those resources.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any other questions for Ally? Ally, I have one. In the past, some of us know that the city was fortunate to have some Green Corps interns. I was wondering, it's kind of a twofold question because it's all interrelated. What is the likelihood of that happening in 2026? And, or, what would the likelihood be of not necessarily getting a Green Corps intern, but an intern essentially at the college level that could provide some additional assistance to you? Because I know that in the past, prior to you coming to the city, we had some interns, and they did a lot more than our staff person could do, only because there were more bodies to do that. So I was just wondering, what do you think the likelihood is?
Yeah, all great questions. And so we actually did apply for a Green Corps member for this last round, and we weren't selected. So we tried. It's a limited number, and it's competitive, right? So we will try again. I will say there were issues with the Green Corps program this year where I believe the federal government no longer is funding them because they're a part of the AmeriCorps.
I was afraid of that.
So the state of Minnesota actually elected to fully fund the program. I believe that's, at least at one point, that's what was happening. So it was very contentious, and for a long time it was uncertain if it would actually go through or not. It did. So actually people do have these Green Corps members now. That being said, I have no idea what's going to come in 2026. Of course, if the opportunity comes up, we will be sure to apply again. You're right that there was at least 2 Green Corps members that have helped out with the city, and we were very fortunate to get 2 at one time. I don't think that's normal, and I think they kind of had a surplus, and they liked working with Minnetonka, is what I hear. So yes, we hope to have more interns like that in the future. And I actually talked to Susan about this too. As we go through and do more research and development of these programs, we certainly will start having those staffing conversations to say, you know, if we want to implement this, we will need this many more people helping or this much more staff time. So we'll be looking at all sorts of options, whether it's an intern, staffing, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
And Susan might
I
want
would
to
just
respond.
add on to that as we have conversations about staffing, obviously all staffing decisions are, budgetary to decisions.
Certainly.
And whether it's sustainability or planning or engineering or public works, and so that's a much larger conversation that has to happen with the city council.
Very understandable. Thank you. Any other questions for this agenda item? No? Okay. As Ally pointed out correctly, it's a discussion item, but it does require that we recommend to the City Council approval of the 2026 Sustainability Commission work plan, as Ally has just disclosed to us. So with that, I'm looking for someone to make a motion to approve the 2026 Sustainability Commission work plan for Ally then to go before the City Council.
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? Oh. We had 2, either Amanda or Michael. Amanda, I think you went first. Or Alan,
I'll
sorry.
second.
Sorry. Thank you. Okay. Staff, would you poll the commission members?
Ingham? Yes. Ingram?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Norman? Yes. Patane?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Chair Golub?
Yes. And with that, I should have said that with that discussion ended, I will open and close the public input portion for item 5B. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move to item 6 on our agenda, which is report from staff Staff?
Oh, yeah, it's me again.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Ally.
Okay, so general staff updates. Let me just pull them up here because I realized I didn't put them in the PowerPoint. So, couple things. So our next Sustainability Commission meeting is January 20th, so it's after the new year. We will stay on Tuesdays, every third Tuesday next year for each month, is what I've been told. So stay tuned for that calendar. I'll send that out to you. You should have already received the calendar invites through your Outlook, City Outlook, but I'll share a PDF version of that as well. And then I also just wanted to highlight the upcoming Sustainability Ambassador opportunities. There's an event coming up. It's the Winter Farmers Market, which some of you I know have attended in the past. And that's on December 13th. And I requested that we have 2 tables. We don't have to, but I figure if we can, why not? This is also a really, really fun event. I actually went. It was like the first week of work last year when I started. And it was so fun. It was very much like a crafts fair. So it's not just produce, you know, there's so many homemade goods. So I really encourage you just to attend if you can actually help volunteer. But yes, I see a couple hands.
I was just wondering if that farmer's market was taking non-commissioned volunteers. Do we need those?
For the farmer's market? Oh, do you have like a friend or something? Or I guess
Yeah.
what's the context?
I just
Probably.
I just know a lot of people through my IB diploma program who probably could use some volunteer
Yeah,
time. So
I will
I was just
ask.
wondering if we needed that.
Possibly. I will say the way it works, it's mostly people bringing their own tables. So in that way, it would just kind of maybe be more based on like setup, but let me get back to you. I will ask the event coordinator. I appreciate the offer. Thanks. So the event is on the 13th of December, and I actually don't have the times written down. Does anyone else remember? I think it's 9:30
What
to
day is that?
2. It's a Saturday.
Saturday, that's what I thought from last year.
I believe it was 9:30 to 2. Diane, I saw you registered online for it, so that's what I'm looking at.
9:45 to 2.
I believe it was, yeah. So if you're interested in volunteering, you know your schedule, you can maybe raise your hand now, and it looks like Brian and Ashley are interested in. And I also wanted to mention, we don't have to do this, but I thought we could maybe do one organics recycling table because we're still trying to promote that. And then I actually left the other table open to whoever, I think Diane signed up for that one. But I thought it would be fun if the commission just kind of started choosing your own tables based on the topics that are, included in the cap. And then maybe we have a conversation before and I can get the materials ready for you. But Brian or Ashley, do you know which table you're interested in, or do you not?
Either one, but organics recycling is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we can have more than one person at each table, so.
I was like my sustainability soul sister. What do you want to do? You want to be there?
Energy,
We love renewable energy. No,
electrification.
we love electrification. We'll figure it out between the 3 of us. We can work these tables.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes.
We'll
Yeah.
work it out.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. So yeah, that will be our last event of 2025, and then we'll look into 2026 after that. But those are the only updates I have.
Okay, thank you very much, Ally. Appreciate that. We'll move to item 7, which is a report from our sustainability commissioners. Does anyone have anything that they would like to share? Ashley, please.
Team, my sincerest apologies. I have been attending the zoning committee work group for the past, I forget your last name, Susan. Miss
Susan is fine. Ms. Thomas,
Susan.
yeah. We started in February of
We
this
started
year.
in February, and I have not given reports to this group, I realized. We did one in February, we did one on September 10th, which I realized I think we had a meeting that same week, and my apologies. But I have been attending as the Sustainability Commission ambassador, our commissioner from that group. We have a different commissioner from each of the park and boards, and it's been a great opportunity, of course, to meet the other commissioners and to work on zoning information for the city. As you may or may not know, we are working on rezoning Minnetonka. They hired a consultant for that opportunity, and so they gathered a bunch of information through several projects, through Minnetonka Matters. They did a phone survey. They were also at Summerfest, and so they gathered a lot of information, and then they had us look at it. They had city staff look at it as well. And so they went through a lot of unique questions to see whether or not how people felt about a rezoning. So like doing some overlapping zoning with residential and commercial zoning together. Also how people felt about just shrinking down the lot sizes a little bit so that we can adjust our housing needs, because we know that we do need to adjust housing needs to help Minnetonka grow a little bit. So it's been a really unique opportunity. I have tried to show up as best as possible for our Sustainability Commission and help make sure that we had helped make sure that sustainability was at the forefront of people's minds. So it's been a great opportunity. Apologies for not making sure that I updated our commission sooner, but it's been great.
Thank you, Ashley. That was very interesting. I had no idea.
Can I give a plug since you said that and you had no idea? I encourage everyone here and our viewing audience to go to Minnetonka Matters. There is a web page on Minnetonka Matters called the Zoning Update, and you'll find information about kind of what we're looking at right now. You'll find opportunities for public engagement in the future. We keep that updated as best we can. It's a long project. It was going to be about an 18-month project. So just continue to tune in, and I'm sure Commissioner Patain will have more information as we get closer to having an actual document to view.
Thank you very much, Susan. Any other questions or comments for Ashley?
Quick question. So the role is like an official sort of representation of our body, correct? Or ambassador, like how does that look?
Yes. So I was not at the meeting because I received an email or a call from the mayor, an email from the city. I believe it was discussed at one of our meetings that I was not in attendance at. But yes, so I was selected from this commission, and there's a representative from each of the other commissions and boards. And so we just all come together and basically are giving feedback from our perspective from our respective boards or commissions.
So the voting, like in terms of a vote?
There's not voting. It's
Okay.
more so feedback on just a variety of questions they have about different zoning things. And then there's also a few members from the community, just like residents from Minnetonka as well. So
Got
that's
it.
kind of nice as well. The mayor also came. He wasn't able to make it to the first meeting, but came to the second meeting that we had. I'm assuming the new mayor will be at any additional meetings we have.
And so you're there to provide sort of the sustainability lens through which to kind of look at that work.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Of
course.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Ashley, for the clarification. If there are no other questions, that will conclude item 7. Item 8 on our agenda is other business. I do not believe, Ashley?
I think Diane does. Sorry, she was going.
Diane?
Oh, I was just going to add that I was pleased to be able to take the Hennepin County Recycling Ambassador Program this fall. It was taught by my niece, so who inspired me. But it was I would encourage other sustainability commissioners to consider it, because it was an excellent resource of people from MPCA, from county, state, other communities, as well as tours of HERC and MRF and organic and metal recycling. It was eye-opening and a great resource. So
Sounds very interesting.
And I would
it's
just
free.
make a note too, so it's open to the public actually, so any Hennepin County resident can sign up for that, right? And is it offered twice a year? Is that how often, do you know?
I believe it is.
I believe it's twice a year,
It
so.
had been virtual during COVID up until this fall, when they went back to an in-person class. And I believe that it's going to be twice yearly.
And where was that class held?
St. Louis Park Library.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
They may have different locations, and it's about 8 sessions.
I just looked it up. The next one is planned for spring 2026, starting on March 5th. So if you're interested, you can go to Hennepin County's website and search Recycling Ambassador, and that's how you can sign up.
Yes.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you, Ellie. As that concludes item 7.
Sorry, I have a
Oh,
me too.
Ashley, go
Sorry.
right ahead. No
I
problem.
was just trying to let Commissioner Meyer go. So I have, wait, are we on, no, I don't have a report. Sorry, I have other business.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it still says item 7.
7 is,
Seven's
our
report.
commissioners,
Okay, I
yeah.
have it. So you're sorry.
Okay, so that,
Now,
that will conclude item 7. So now we will move to item 8, other business.
Okay.
Ashley?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like I forgot I was in the corner. I was like, thank you, Your Honor. Anyway, sorry, y'all. It's been a long day. So I wanted to discuss, so I recently was blessed enough to purchase an electric vehicle and Kia EV6, love it. Would be happy to share that with anyone who would like to see it. It is fantastic. I'm in love with her 2025 model. Fantastic. GT. And she is fantastic. I purchased it because, as you all know, I am committed to lowering my emissions. I was appreciative of the slide tonight where it talked about how are we all going to lower our emissions. And we, of course, have this goal of we're trying to get down to zero emissions by 2050. And I also appreciated when you very clearly listed out what does the, each ton look like and how do we each, personally commit to getting there by 2050. And one of the ways that we could do that was by purchasing an electric vehicle and what was it, 1.95 to be exact, carbon emissions each year is saved, metric tons, excuse me, thank you, is saved each year by purchasing an electric vehicle. And I will say that I think Minnetonka, the slide that you showed to start off the presentation tonight showed Minnetonka's commitment since, 1976 to being sustainable and the journey that the city has taken. And culminating in 2021 with just creating this commission. With that said, I think there is, always going to be steps that we can continue to do and take, which is part of what, why we were coming up with our work plan tonight. One of the steps that I hope that we can continue to work on is encouraging our community and its residents, its businesses to make being sustainable residents as easy as possible. And something that I have found really challenging as a new EV owner is charging. So I wanted to purchase a charger at home. I purchased the vehicle without intending to plan to purchase a charger at home, but I live in a HOA. So I like to think that I represent part of the Minnetonka community that lives in a multifamily housing. I live in a condo. I am a part of the Creeks Bend HOA community, and that has been really challenging. I am still without a home charger. I am fortunate that I can afford to buy a home charger. I had several electricians come out to offer me bids. I found an electrician that I liked. I am just waiting on the HOA to give me approval to install the electric charger still. I have purchased my EV. It has been about a month and a half of public charging, and that is really, really not ideal for myself, especially when I am in a situation where I want to charge at home. It would be ideal for me to charge at home. I did not purchase my EV with plans of charging at home. And so I really say this to say that I hope that Minnetonka, in having this commitment to have us get to zero emissions, and especially seeing that part of how we can get people to get to zero emissions, on another slide, you also had that we want to get people to have 1 in 5 of our vehicles be EVs. And I don't know what the number is now. Does anybody else know what the number is right now? I'm sure it's not 1 in 5, but I'm sure it's much higher, fossil fueled vehicles. But if we're going to encourage people to make steps like this, I would hope that we'd make sure that we're encouraging homeowners associations, let them know truly that Minnetonka is committed to making that transition as easy as possible for its residents. And I think that we as a city have to really ensure that we have policies that support that messaging. And so I have really struggled with my homeowners association at present. I am not sure that I'm going to be able to get a home charger. I don't want to say that would have changed whether or not I would have purchased an EV, but I would have definitely thought more differently about it. My commitment to sustainability, my commitment to trying to do what I can to combat climate change, because I want a better future for our young members here for my own children is still very, very strong. However, I think that I would hope that my city, the city of Minnetonka, would help support me in this mission by making sure that the place that I live, the place that I pay a mortgage at, make sure that I can easily access the power to charge my vehicle at home. Especially when there's already so many barriers for so many people, where a lot of people can't afford to just say, hey, I'm going to go buy a different car because I'm committed to climate change. We're committed to combating climate change. And I understand that that is a privilege, and that I am afforded, and I am so grateful for that. But I hope that when that is not a barrier for certain people, that we don't have homeowners associations creating additional barriers for people by saying no. And I understand that it's not going to be super easy. I understand that there's other things that are in the way, but that is not the situation that I am in, fortunately. So I say that to say, I have too many passions, and but I think that one of the things that I would really like to focus on this year, and I did see on your slide already that you had, I can't remember how you titled it exactly, I probably should have written it down, was EV readiness, I think perhaps is what it said. And so I saw that that was already on your list, but I do want to be very intentional with my efforts this year to make sure that we truly put our best intentions forward in that effort, because I believe that if we are truly about making this goal happen, and yes, we are seeing significant decreases, but I don't know if y'all looked at that line, that's a pretty drastic drop from where we are right now. And so if we're going to make that happen, I think that we really need to stand on business and make sure that we are enforcing and supporting policies that make it as easy as possible for people to be lowering their emissions. And so that is my little story about me purchasing the EV that I love so much, but hope that we can live in a city and support a city that has already done so much great work to support sustainability, to push them into making even more changes and better policies that strongly encourage our community to make even better policies and better decisions to support its residents. So that is just my little spiel for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Dave?
Yeah, just to follow up to Ashley's point, because I think it's a really good one. If from the standpoint of the city, whether it's, I don't know if it's ordinances or zoning or whatever it would be, is that something that the city could put into, or again, I don't know the right terminology, I use the word requirement, a requirement for either new multifamily development or any way to put it into retrofit into existing multifamily housing for the accessibility for that. I think for their purposes, it's an advantage from a sales perspective to provide that kind of benefit, but to help make sure it happens, whether it's inside a garage or just a communal space within the facility.
Yeah, I can speak to that, if I may, Chair Golub.
Thank you.
In the zoning ordinance, we have in the past been reluctant to put in a requirement for new construction to include EV charging because of several lawsuits that have been pending in the state, essentially requiring something in construction above and beyond what the state building code requires. Having said that, I can say that in every case, new construction, specifically for multifamily, since 2000, we have, as planners, said exactly what you said, Commissioner Ingram, to the developers. This would be a great selling point for you to include EV chargers, and 100% of those apartment buildings have done that. Great. To a certain extent. We also, our planning department, even though Allie is in the planning department, she doesn't review building permits, but we do, and I would say that the vast majority of new home construction, single-family homes, are also being constructed EV ready for charging. So Something we have not required in the past, the zoning ordinance update that Commissioner Patain spoke to, we have asked our consultant to consider including a chapter on sustainability as its own chapter, and including kind of some menu of options that we would expect future new construction and, as you said, remodels, retrofits to select from that menu of options. So we haven't seen anything yet, but that's something that planning staff has asked our consultant to take a look at.
You know, just as a follow-up, I know in the deck, I think somewhere it indicated how many registered EVs there were in the city. I think it was 474 at the point in the report. You bring up an interesting point. Be interesting to see the, if we know it, which it sounds like we do, the number of residents that are being either have or are in the process of having those kind of outlets put in their.
That's certainly a number that we can get, and as part of our strategic profile, we have to do some reporting for the council, and we already track solar installations, and so EV charging, I think that would be something, if we're not already tracking that, that's certainly something that would be easy enough for us to pull from our permit information.
Thank you.
Sorry, the mics today. No, thank you. Thank you for that's such a great follow-up question. And I do want to say I do appreciate that the city, number one, even if you aren't necessarily, because I do understand the legal implications sometimes behind a city writing something into its these microphones today, writing something into its zoning. But I do appreciate though that when builders are coming forward, that you are encouraging them to consider how they are going about making sure that homes are EV ready, because I think that when it comes from the city, there is power in where that source is coming from. So I think that I hope that you all know that that is appreciated, because obviously your voice is the city's voice can be, you're a different source than, of course, just a resident, of course. So I just want to note that.
Very good point. Dave? Michael?
You have something first, didn't you?
Oh, mine was unrelated. It's
Oh.
other business.
Yeah, I have a different topic though, different question, but
Go ahead, Dave.
don't want to be, this might be a weird question, but we compost at home ourselves, so we don't use the city thing.
It's good.
And that's a single hauler, or is that all the haulers?
Sorry, I'm trying to, oh, I am unmuted. My understanding is a single hauler, and I believe it's Republic Services?
It is. Yes, it is.
So, without being in politics here, at some point, do we look at the carbon footprint of driving the truck through the entire city for 274 or whatever it was households, versus just saying we're creating more, in the short term, until people start getting more interested in composting, we're creating more problems by having a truck driving over the entire city doing that versus those households?
I believe that they're looking at the trade-offs of it going into the landfill, and that material then having methane emissions coming through the landfill. So my understanding is that that's what Hennepin County's climate goals are all focused on, this organized, I guess, organics collection. And previously it was multiple different haulers driving around because residents could sign up for their own hauler. You could have Waste Management or whoever. So my understanding is that organized is the best way to do that from a climate lens.
Okay.
But it's also not our division, so I can't fully speak on that.
Right.
Dave, if I may, you're right. The best way to compost organics would be from an individual house in your backyard, so that it's not being
hauled
picked
around,
up, or you're not going to another place. However, that being said, I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm not sure how many people want to do that or are willing to do that. So with that in mind, you want to to follow the example by Hennepin County and try to minimize or divert organic material from going
Sure.
to the incinerator or to a landfill by going to a dedicated location. So hence we have organized organic collection, which is a huge step in the right direction from an environmental perspective. But let's not think about the emissions, but just in terms of moving that organic to be used as a resource. At the moment, I don't live that far from Public Works, and so my wife and I generally will drive over once a week with about this much organic material. Not having young kids in the house, we don't waste or generate that much, so it's not a problem for me, and I don't do it that often. But yes, and I'm going to jump ship a little bit. We have many private haulers going down my street, and now we have another large truck going down the street, and in addition to a truck picking up my recyclables. So there are these laudable goals, but you have to think about the emissions that are being generated. So, and I think, looking at one of the slides, Ally, that there are 2,772 households that are participating right now in organized organic collection. And how many total households are there? I was just trying to do.
25,000.
So, okay. So we're not, yeah, it's about 10%. And hopefully that
That's
number,
better than I thought, yeah.
that number will grow. Because as we all know, people are paying for it. So if they want to take advantage of that, they certainly can, but I'm not sure why they've been reluctant to do that so far. I mean, I do it because it's very convenient for me, and it's not a problem. And I usually combine it with another trip. Like tonight, I dropped off at Public Works and I came here. So I wasn't a dedicated trip. And hopefully that number will increase. And I think that Hennepin has estimated that at least organics is maybe 18%, and I may be off, on the municipal solid waste stream. So there is a lot of material in the past years that had gone to a landfill or had gone to the HERC facility. And people have said that seems not like a good use of organics to be either landfilled or incinerated. So, I think it's beneficial, and we're improving. As you recall, as you're as old as I am, back in the early days of curbside recycling, people said, "Oh, nobody will set out their curbside recyclables. They won't set out their glass and their cans and their newsprint." And what is the citizen participation rate? We had people following the trucks and counting the number of set outs versus the total number of stops to calculate the numbers in the numerator and the denominator to say, okay, now we had 40% of the people setting them out, or 60% or 80%. Now, if you look at my neighborhood, everybody does that, but that's been decades in the works. So organic recycling, if we're at 10% now, it will improve. I'm confident of it based on the history of recycling collection in the past. So a little history there. Anyway, thank you for the questions. Any other information? Or Diane, please.
One follow-up.
Yes.
Dave, to dovetail on your suggestion of organized hauling, we discussed this at our last commission meeting. And sustainability commissioners are in agreement that a single hauler, at least for a quadrant of our city, would be the most environmentally safe and protective and work towards decreasing greenhouse gases. So Minneapolis has been able to do it with a creative method of a quadrant, dividing the city into quadrants and haulers having a quadrant. So it's something that we would like the city to look at.
As I pointed out, people have an emotional attachment to their hauler. When I worked for St. Paul Public Works, after graduate school, they did a study. Joanne England, who's long gone now, but did a study on organized collection. The same arguments or logical points were made back then. You can see that it didn't get anywhere because people were not happy with having their hauler taken away from them. I think we would go through the same thing. I agree with all the logic there. From an environmental perspective, it makes all the sense in the world. But it's not as easy as we'd like to think.
All you have to do is look on Nextdoor. It's one of the most popular topics is dumping on their current provider and changing over to a new provider.
It is.
It is emotional.
Yeah.
But it does make great sense,
It does. We're all in agreement that it does.
especially if you live on a cul-de-sac.
Ellen, do you have a question? No? Okay.
I think if we could negotiate for a lower price, the majority of people would be in favor of a lower price and go along with the switch.
Very possibly. It might be interesting, and I'm just speculating, if the city ever did a survey of its residents to see what percentage of people would be willing to do that so that it would be less potentially contentious moving forward.
Chair and Commissioners, I just wanted to respond to that. We would have to ask Darren Ellingson if he's done any sort of surveying like that in the past. He's our city's recycling coordinator among many other duties that he has. He's spoken to the commission in the past, you may recall him. But yeah, we could definitely start there and see if he's done any surveys in the past. And I think this is also a conversation that City Council would likely need to have.
Yes.
It's definitely a policy decision, and some direction would be needed there at that council level to the Sustainability Commission to probably move forward with a topic of this nature. But in the meantime, I can certainly talk to Darren and see, if and what research he's done. So
That would be great. That would be an excellent first step. Thank you very much, Ali. Thank you. Michael?
I have something unrelated to that. Is that
Right ahead.
Okay, so I may have mentioned this before, I'm not sure, but I am a part of the Minnetonka High School newspaper, Minnetonka Breezes, and I saw in one of the strategies earlier, I think it was strategy 28, it referenced engaging students, and so I think that maybe forming some sort of like connection or like partnership with like a journalism publication in like high schools would be really important for just making that connection with students, because I think from my perspective, not many students or like the new generation really knows that the city of Minnetonka has like a sustainability commission. And so I think maybe like featuring the commission in some sort of article would be beneficial to that. And as a person who like is part of that, I think I would be able to help out with that a lot.
amazing. Yeah. Great ideas.
Excellent idea. Thank you. Excellent.
To add to that, as someone who goes to the same school but is not in the newspaper, everyone reads it. So it's not just the people who are writing the articles that are reading it. I read every article. Most people I know read every article or mostly every article. So if we were to do that, I think it would have a really great reach throughout the whole school, which is what, 3,500 students, I think?
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Great.
It's not paper.
It is. That's an excellent idea, Michael. Thank you very much. Okay. With that, I think that concludes item 8. We'll move to item 9, which is adjournment. Would anyone like to make the motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, thank you. Is it seconded? Would someone like to second it?
I'll second.
Okay. Susan, do you want to poll the members?
Ingham,
Yes.
Ingram,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Norman, Patane,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Chair Golub.
Yes. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Okay, you can.